Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation Santa Rosa. I'm the Reverend Chris Bell, the minister here for a couple more months where I've joyfully served for the last 15 years. You have found a wonderful community of people who are devoted to a mission of celebrating life, empowering people, caring for one another, and helping to build a better world. And we hope you will be a part of that. Speaking of singing, the choir is going to be starting up again in mid to late August with a hope of singing in person in September somewhere around in-gathering time. So please be in touch with any member of the choir or Sadie if you're interested in singing. Exactly how that unfolds will depend on how we stumble our way through this whole reopening process with all kinds of signals coming from all kinds of different directions about what's safe and what's not. We've got a crack team, our health advisory committee, who have been guiding our process. Part of that is going to happen right after this service. Stick around. Maybe we'll take like 5 minutes for a bio break and then leap immediately into Q&A and raising of concerns. Town hall on reopening. Leaders will be there. I really hope you'll stick around. Other congregational news. This week, the board will learn the name of the candidate who has been chosen by the interim search committee, and then we'll later vote to approve that candidate. So some very exciting news about the next ministerial leadership here at UUCSR is right on the horizon. There's a lyric in Across the Great Divide that we'll hear momentarily. I've been sifting through the layers of dusty books and faded papers. They tell a story I used to know. And I've been doing that exact thing, kind of starting to go through my office and my papers a little bit and finding a treasure trove of historical documents and photos and so forth of the congregation. And since we're telling congregational stories this month, I've laid them out on some tables in the narthex. I'm going to try and loosely organize them. If you have any business in the building, take a little time to look at some of these groovy old things. As I said, we're spending a month talking about story. Next week, I'll tell the story of my ministry here as I think of it. This week, we're hearing a little bit more about some of the past of the congregation, farther back, particularly as experienced by one of our longtime members and your worship associate today, Linda Lampson. It's been kind of a challenging month, I'll confess, because I am not really wired for story. It's kind of weird. It's one reason we have worship associates tell story-based reflection. I'm just, whether it's from hedonism or Zen, I'm a kind of a present moment guy. I have a hard time remembering stories. And so actually, one thing I would love, if you're so inclined, maybe as a gift to me before I depart, would be to share a story with me, share a memory with me, remind me of something that we did together in an email or any other way. I would love that. So thanks, welcome to worship. Let's let music invite the spirit of life and love into our minds and our hearts as we worship together.
I've been walking in my divide. Now I heard an owl calling softly as the night was falling, with a question, and I replied, but he's gone across the borderline. It's gone away in yesterday. Now I find myself on the mountainside, where the rivers change direction across the great divide. Finest hour that I have seen is the one that comes between the edge of night and the break of day. It's when the darkness rolls away. It's gone away in yesterday, and I find myself on the mountainside, where the rivers change direction across the great divide. Well, it's gone away in yesterday, and I find myself on the mountainside, where the rivers change direction across the great divide.
Our chalice lighting words are by the Reverend David Breeden, and Reverend Chris will light the chalice this morning. We tender this flame, opening the book, turning to a page yet to be written, opening a story yet to be told. May we fill this fresh page wisely. May we write a new story into being. May we together inscribe the page with hope.
And now, I'll even say, please rise in body or spirit as you are willing and able, and let's sing our opening hymn, Come, Come, whoever you are. A wonderful arrangement by Leah Morris, who has given Unitarian Universalism so many gorgeous songs during the pandemic. I have sent her money from the church. I hope you'll send her money too. Leah Morris.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come,
We have a responsive reading for you to share in. It's from a new book of UU readings called Lifting Our Voices, which is sort of adds to the collection of readings that are in the back of our hymnal. And I would urge you to check it out. It has beautiful stuff, much more multicultural in its sourcing. This one happens to have been written by Reverend Lynn Gardner, who's a friend of mine who, with Wendy Bartell, used to be the minister up there in Auburn. Some of you might have heard them preach or wail on drums at District Assembly. Remember those? Here is our reading.
Can you hear them? Can you hear the whispers of the ancestors?
We remember. Their stories are in these walls, in our bones, in the air that we breathe. Their stories are in the touch of a calloused hand, in the melody of songs that we hum while washing dishes, in remembered faces.
We hear the whispers of the ancestors, how their stories touch our lives and call us into becoming.
And if you would join me in singing our principal song as we get ready for Time for All Ages.
One each person is worthwhile, to be kind in all you do. Three, let's help each other grow, for keep searching for the true. Five, each person has a say. Six, for a peaceful world. Seven, a level that's a way that will bring us back to you, you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Time for All Ages. It is so wonderful to be here with all of you on yet another wonderful Sunday. Now, I normally would be sharing with you what the kids of RE got up to today. However, for today's service, we are taking time to celebrate the beloved stories that make up the history of UUCSR. So today, instead of hearing from me, you'll be hearing from two absolutely incredible DREs of years past, Julianne Malm and Deborah Mason. No need to delay on hearing these wonderful stories. So let's begin with this wonderful, wonderful story from Julie.
I was a DRE when we had church, as I will call it, at Stony Point and Todd Road residence. I started in 2000, and I left in 2005. When I arrived, there wasn't a teen group. And eventually, a mother from the congregation approached me. She had 3 children, and they were teens, preteens and teens. And she felt a strong need for a teen group. And what she thought would be a good way to start was to have a dinner of parents and the teens. So one night, she brought everything in to the social hall, had prepared the whole dinner. She set the table up, and there were, I can't remember how many of us, and the minister at the time, Bruce Kennedy, joined us. And we had this wonderful, wonderful dinner. And that began our teen group. It evolved into meeting after the service. We would have a meal together, parents and teens. Then the parents would go off to their own group, and I would do a circle with the teens, and again, we would play games, do silly kinds of things. We also did a check-in, and it was great fun. Eventually, some of the teens were ready to graduate and go from the junior group to the high school group. So we had this wonderful bridging ceremony. And again, this same mother, she helped me work on the bridging ceremony. There were 4 teens who were graduating, and they each had to present their own speech of what they had done that year. And then we formed, the whole congregation formed a bridge And the four teenagers, one by one, went through the bridge, going from one stage, from junior to senior high, and we led them out. In the next year, and there were 3 camps. One was they went into San Francisco, and they did with the Grateful Fools, and they did a street overnight with the homeless. But the teen group really grew. It grew, and part of it was like the combination of the meals, and we met once a month as a group, the family, the parents, and the teens. And we had this meal together, and by then it became potluck. Everyone brought something. And I would do ritual check-ins and rituals with the teens and fun games, because I like the games. And the parents would talk, support themselves. And that continued when we moved into the new church on Mendocino Avenue.
Absolutely wonderful reflection, Julie. The foundations that she built for our congregation's youth group are still here to this day. And even though our building may have changed, the love and community that our families hold certainly has not. And now we'll be hearing from Deborah Mason.
In late July of 2014, Chloe, Zoe, Caroline, Rachel, Claire, Alex, Eddie, Ian, and Aaron loaded into a 12-passenger van with Reverend Chris and me for a 10-day service trip in Taos, New Mexico. Youth group grad Izzy and her dad, Eric Fisher, joined us once we arrived in Taos to work with Habitat for Humanity, building a home for a single mother and her 2 young children. There are several reasons to take a youth group on a service trip. My primary interest was giving the youth an experience that would immerse them in challenging work for the greater good, and to take them out of the comfort of their routine of home life, bonding them to one another and to their higher selves. The road trip took 2 very long days. Our first stop was a UU church in Las Vegas. The congregation had opened its doors to let us sleep there in their building for the night. The next day, we were up and out for a long day's journey to Taos. In Taos, we stayed in a former convent connected to Our Lady of Guadalupe Church right in downtown. For 5 days, the youth, Reverend Chris and Eric, worked with the very skilled Habitat experts in construction, building the house. It was hard work. Each day, the crew had a variety of tasks for the youth to work on. There was a lot of hammering of nails. Working on constructing the roof brought a sense of challenge and some fear. Our youth took the challenge with courage and strength. Every evening, the group returned to our home site very tired and very hungry. So I presented them with a hearty home-cooked meal. There was a lot of work, but there was play also. One night it rained so hard that the next day there was a huge mud puddle outside our quarters. Several of the youth took advantage of this miracle of nature by diving in the mud and playing a game that left them covered from head to toe. On our day off, we went whitewater rafting, and it hailed on us. We visited Taos Pueblo and the Rio Grande Gorge Bridge, where an electrical storm literally had our hair standing on end. In the evenings, we worshiped together. After the sun went down, we formed a circle with a chalice light in the middle, and we sang songs and gave thanks for the work that was done in our time together. It was a beautiful time of connection and spirit. When the work was done, our group celebrated on top of the roof they had helped to construct. Everyone had a pure sense of accomplishment and received the gratitude of the new owner of the home with grace and pride. The ride home was much quieter. Tired and ready to be home, we traveled again. The UUs of Flagstaff let us stay the night in their church, and the next morning we made a quick stop at the Grand Canyon, then headed straight for Santa Rosa. It was a wonderful trip. Believe me, all of us worked together and created memories of friendship, adventure, and service that will last a lifetime.
Thank you so much for that wonderful story, Deb. The work and care and love you gave to our youth and families was so powerful and plentiful, and it is still felt by the children and families of RE to this very day. Now, before we go, I'm going to share with you a unison affirmation from the Bailey Okura family.
We are Unitarian, Universalist, people of the open mind, the loving hearts, and the helping hands.
Thank you, Era. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Bailey Okuras. Tending to young people is, I think, the most sacred thing that our congregation does. And of course, that's primarily through our Sunday religious education offerings, but that's not the only way. We also help a young person through our Adrienne Swenson Award, and Wayne Smith from the Advocates for Social Justice will tell us more.
Well, thank you, Reverend Chris, and good morning to everyone. Each year, this congregation awards our Adrienne Swenson Scholarship to the college-bound high school senior who has best demonstrated remarkable achievements in the areas of social and environmental justice. Students compete for this essay by completing a 750-word essay describing the role of activism in their lives and in their values. Adrienne Swenson was a tireless worker and advocate for social and environmental justice in our community, our county, our state, and she was one of the co-founders of the Peace and Justice Center of Sonoma County. We make this award to acknowledge accomplishments, to encourage future activism, and of course to honor Adrienne. When we evaluate these essays, we look for leadership, teamwork, initiative, innovation, but especially we look for passion, the kind of passion that drove Adrienne Swenson in her work. You'll get a chance to see that passion for yourself. The winning essay will appear in our next VU newsletter. This was a banner year for our program. We received 10 excellent surveys from 4 local high schools, Elsie Allen, Piner, Roseland, and Andley in the West County. We wish we could have given 10 scholarships, but that's not how it works. And so I'll turn you over now to Linda Lambert, who will introduce our winner. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. It was a great description of what we're about, I think, and this scholarship as well. And you emphasized that there were so many great essays this year, more than ever before. It's often been easy to pick out the 1 or 2 best. But when we picked Ana Sanchez as our winner for this year, we knew that she was among the most excellent as well. Ana is a senior at Roseland Collegiate High School. And I'd like to say that it has an average of 95% graduation at this school. It's very supportive of all of its students. She's a highly engaged learner, as we have learned from her. She's an exceptional leader. And I think that Wayne mentioned leadership as well and passion. And I just want to highlight a few things that we've noticed in her work. She advocates and works toward her values. She initiates action. She creates and begins things. She collaborates with and motivates others to work alongside her. And she decisively strengthens our democracy through her own political actions in several cases. So we're particularly proud that we've connected with Ana and that we hope to keep track of her as she goes on next year to Cal Poly in Pomona to major in rocket science. And when she said that, I said, did I hear correctly? And she said, well, yes, it's aeronautical engineering, as it is. So Anna, are you here someplace?
Hi, Linda. Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for, giving me this award. Yeah, I'm very happy that I got this award. Obviously, it was a really great excitement. I've been advocating for a lot of social justice and a little bit of environmental justice. I recently started working with the Sunrise Movement, which is an organization that kind of aims in helping environmental justice. I'm probably most known for my role in fighting for social justice, especially in terms of like Black Lives Matter and Free the Kids in Cages. I am a member of the Sonoma County Autonomous Brown Berets. And in case you don't know who the Brown Berets are, they are a movement, a pro-Chicano / pro-Latino movement that aims in bringing more rights to our Latino community, mainly the Mexican community, but recently we have opened it up to many Latino communities. The way I refer to it, it's kind of like the Latino version of the Black Panthers. The Black Panther Party, obviously known for kind of like its works in the 60s and 70s to bring up the Black Lives Matter movement. This past couple of years, I've been probably notoriously known for having meetings with the chief of police and mayor for the Black Lives Matter protest again, and how we can better, I guess, how to kind of like kind of like keep in control the protests, and how the police department can kind of just, I guess you can say, what they can do to improve how they reach out to people of communities of color, especially now with the whole entire like scenarios where people don't feel entirely comfortable with police. I've also had meetings with the mayor as well, but probably I think the one that went viral was the one with the chief of police. I will be majoring in rocket science, which is astronautical engineering, or aeronautical engineering as it is known. I will be at Cal Poly Pomona for the fall of 2021, and I will still continue to work in environmental and social justice. I will be transferring from the Sonoma County Brown Berets to the Los Angeles Brown Berets. So I will, obviously still be in the news, and I will very much still keep fighting. And I am very, very honored to have been given this award in Adrienne's name. Adrienne obviously was a wonderful, remarkable woman who I didn't have the pleasure of meeting, but I am just beyond honored that I have received it in her name specifically. I have told this to Linda that I will continue to, everything that I do, I will represent Adrienne as I am her recipient. I will continue to represent her in the work that I do for environmental and social justice. So it was very nice to meet you all, and just, thank you everybody for this award and for giving me this opportunity. It means a lot.
Great job, Anna. Unmute everybody. Let's give her a big cheer.
Yay!
All right, lovely. Gonna mute you all again. Thank you. Thank you to our advocates. Thank you to Adrienne Swenson. And that was a wonderful thing. We wish Anna the very, very best of luck. Okay, as I mentioned at the front of the service, we're having a town hall meeting afterward to start talking about how we're going to get reopened with as many live humans together, singing and hooting and hollering and worshiping the way we want as soon as we possibly can. And I will tell you that pretty much every strategy to allow that to happen depends on us being able to simultaneously have live human beings and do this kind of a broadcast experience for people who are still at risk or who are fearful. Not to mention the fact that one thing the pandemic has revealed is that we have fans and attendees from even around the country. and that by making our services available either as recordings and or live streams actually enables us to share our message of hope and inclusion and healing love with anybody that wants to watch it. So we need good camera equipment in this sanctuary. And the good news is everybody knows it. The board knows it and has approved a special fundraiser for us to meet this goal. And indeed, they pledged $3,500 of the necessary $8,000 that very first day. So I'm asking you, friends, if you have some money that you can spare for the congregation to move this cause forward, make a special donation, write something like sanctuary cameras in the memo, and let's just take care of this before we even get to the board meeting on Thursday, where they were going to wonder how we were going to pay for it. So I thank you very kindly. I'm happy to answer any questions at the town hall about what that all means. Here's what you might put in the memo. I put that in the chat. And in anticipation of your wonderful generosity, let's read together our dedication words. To the work of creating beloved community within and beyond our walls, we dedicate these offerings and ourselves. And thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's hear this week's milestones from one of our lay chaplains, Tamara.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Tamara Murrell, one of your lay chaplains. Milestones are where we share our joys and sorrows with the congregation. You're invited to light a candle to remember those you are holding near to your hearts. Patty Sumlow shares, I just received some exciting news from the San Jose Theater Company Play on Words. They have chosen my piece, How He Made It Across, to be performed Thursday, June 17th at 7 p.m. as part of their first virtual show with the San Jose Museum of Art. The piece is about an undocumented immigrant who stumps a Border Patrol agent as to how he came across the heavily fortified border between Mexico and the United States. Elizabeth Craven reports, on Monday, our boys, Rowan and Quinn, gleefully rode their bikes to school for the first time this school year. It was wonderful to see teenagers excited about something. While they are only going part-time, 2 days a week, it seemed to lift the spirits of the household. Rowan recently completed an abbreviated cross-country season, and Quinn is playing in a very abbreviated soccer season. Winning is nice, but just getting to play feels great. Their high school has announced a junior-senior prom, so Rowan thankfully won't miss this rite of passage. And now that vaccines are available for kids 12 through 15, we will soon be 4 for 4 in vaccinations. Hallelujah. Clelly Gummer has a new children's book published and ready for sale. Hug a Slug, Scoot a Newt, Making Friends with Nature, is a story of 4 children in 3rd and 4th grades on a hike with a docent through 4 habitats. If you're interested, please contact her. Frances Gorman forwarded a note that Richard Riccardi is having surgery to relieve pressure on his brain as a result of an injury from a fall. Please keep him in your prayers, white lights, positive thoughts, and fantastic juju. If you have something to share with all or a private concern to talk over with a lay chaplain, please contact us at laychaplains@uusantarosa.org. We give thanks for the sharing of these milestones, for how they remind us of our shared humanity and our common fate. and inspire our compassion and care. May all our joys be magnified as we delight together in the good news. May all our sorrows be eased as we carry them together in community. May you who are searching for courage, comfort, faith, and hope find what you seek. And may all people grow in wisdom, compassion, and love, that the whole world might live with justice and in peace. Take care and be well.
Thank you, Tam. Some may not know or remember even that Richard Riccardi, who got mentioned with the emergency brain surgery, was our pianist for a period of time. A brilliantly talented fellow who had taught at Sonoma State for years and was more than we might have ever expected, which has kind of been true of every pianist we've ever had at UUCSR. May God be praised. Anyway, he's a gem, and I hope you will keep him in your prayers. And so too, actually, Roger De Beers, who has gone into a care facility from which I might say he is likely to not leave. Let me join my voice to Tamara's voice in a moment of prayer, and then we'll be still together in meditation or contemplation, however a few moments of groundedness and attentive breathing and open-heartedness on your part will best serve you and your spirit. Spirit of life and love, God of all people, times, and places, thank you for this day, and we feel you in this gathering, in the winds of community and sharing and hope that are blowing amongst us, even across this digital landscape. We are grateful for this community and for our lives and everything that blesses us. And opening our hearts again on this day, as on all days, to the sufferings of the world and to our own capacity to play a part in alleviating them. We are holding our many friends who are struggling in different ways in our minds, praying good healing and quick healing for Richard, and easy passage and comfort for Roger, casting our joy on the successes and growths and new experiences that are happening amongst us, and also staying tender to the illnesses and the challenges that we're facing. It's a challenging time in the world. When has it not been? Our hearts break. We see the struggles and injustices around us. May we humbly keep our eyes on the future, where humanity awakens to its togetherness and its unity. We are praying for peace in these days, in particular in the Middle East, and for awakenings we may not even be able to imagine that will allow people to live in peace in that region. Let all the wars of the world stop. Oh God, we pray, including those amongst us and within ourselves. Let peace rule. Keep these minds open, these hearts loving, and these hands helping. And may every good come to be. Amen, and blessed be.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing my heart, oh, stirrings of compassion, blowing the wind, rising the sea, moving the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Whose holy cross we set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. When day and morn bring us a need, the cornerstone, come to lay to compassion. So that who lost to in the morn, hasta morir, justicia de vida,
In 2004, this congregation was celebrating its 50th anniversary. We were in the midst of a time of transition. We had recently moved from our home at Todd Road and Stony Point into our current home at 547 Mendocino. Our interim minister was Fran Dew. We were in the ministerial search process that would culminate in the hiring of Rev. Chris. I delivered this talk to celebrate the second 25 years of our beloved congregation's life. I think it still resonates today. I walked into the UU Fellowship of Sonoma County on Mother's Day, 1980. We had just moved here from Pasadena, where Mark and I and our 2-year-old daughter, Emily, were members of Neighborhood Church. We were new UUs, having found the Unitarians about 5 years earlier. Once I found Neighborhood Church, I embraced the religion like a born again, actively participating in adult ed classes, circle dinners, religious education, and even becoming a member of the board. As a recovering Catholic, I felt like I had found a spiritual home. Neighborhood was what I call high church. Our minister was a gifted speaker. The RE director was a minister of religious education. The grounds were spacious and well-maintained. The choir soloists were paid. And there was a magnificent pipe organ salvaged from their old Victorian building, due to be demolished for the 210 freeway. When I arrived at Stony Point, I walked into a congregation of about 75 people. I'm embarrassed to say this now at my age, but at the time it felt like a sea of white hair. As I recall, there were not even services in the summer, certainly not RE. In fact, RE consisted of only a handful of children. The congregation was so loosely governed that Mark and I couldn't find the membership book to sign for a year and a half. This morning, I will share my recollections of some of the changes in this congregation over the years from 1980 to 2004. Some of you may challenge my memory, and certainly other people and events may stand out for you. Excuse me, just finding my place. For now, I hope you will indulge me as I share some of my favorite stories. After my first shock at entering a country UU fellowship, I stepped back and took stock. I knew in my core I was a UU. I couldn't assume or expect that all UU congregations would be the same. That was part of the strength of the denomination, its ability to serve each member's needs and not make the members bend to the institution. I had seen differences in style between the minister and the DRE at neighborhood. I had also felt deeply listened to and empowered in my old church. So basically, I knew that if I wanted something enough, I could make it happen. The fellowship had been lay-led for 25 years and was fiercely proud of that. We could count on third Sunday service always being related to social justice issues. There was always a UN Sunday service in October. We would rather find volunteers to do everything than hire individuals to provide services. And we thought we lacked the financial resources to increase the budget. French lunch was the first Sunday of the month, consisting of salads, French bread, and cheese. Marlene Abel and I volunteered in RE for many years. We each had more babies to grow the program. We had wonderful coaches to help us develop RE. Susan Simons and Pat Van Leeuwen were especially helpful. Nurturing our flame, we gradually attracted other families. Marlene served as volunteer RE director for a while, and eventually we hired our first professional RE director of that time, Daphne Parsons. I remember the haunting house curriculum for K1. We explored all kinds of houses, including a pumpkin house for light, where we cut various shapes into pumpkins. The children made small houses for favorite objects. I tried to stay calm when one boy brought a live scorpion for his house. We looked at our bodies as houses and helped the children be born by wrapping them tightly in sheets and then helping them emerge. We explored human sexuality and birth control, including demos with supplies from Planned Parenthood. I think it was condoms on watering cans and diaphragms on flower pots. And we had glorious Christmas pageants. We made all the creatures for the stable out of cardboard. We built the stable, another kind of house, out of cardboard and decorated it. Everyone could join in as an angel. We just wrapped silver garlands in their hair. For a few years, we had Santa Lucia pageants, and one of the 12-year-old girls strode in as Santa Lucia with real candles burning on her head. One year, we put on a version of A Christmas Carol, and the Cratchit family grew to include as many children as arrived that day. Another year, it was the Tailor of Gloucester, with many little mice helping out. At Easter, we had egg hunts all over the grounds until some year when we were told the health department probably wouldn't approve of us using real hard-boiled eggs. As the number of young families grew, we found our voice and said, we need a professional full-time minister. Why? Asked the lay leaders. What is wrong with how we are? We answered, we need someone for marrying, burying, and child dedications. We need someone to talk to in crisis, someone to call when there is a death in the family. We need services that have a spiritual content every week, something more than we can hear in a lecture at Sonoma State. We want to grow, and a minister will attract new people. We want a presence in the community. A minister will speak for us. We need someone educated in UU traditions who can teach us and deepen our concept of religion. We need religious programming for adults. After several tries, we called Dan O'Neill, a new graduate from Star King School for the Ministry in Berkeley. Our congregation ordained Dan. As we learned to work with the minister, he learned how to be one. Like all ministers, he had certain strengths and certain weaknesses. He was a powerful preacher about a few selected topics. He did attract new members, and we grew explosively, doubling in about 5 years. Paying for the services and staff all these members required was always a challenge. We added a paid administrator to our staff. We had a series of RE directors, each bringing different gifts. We added the 9 o'clock service and worship associates. We had several delightful intern ministers during Dan's tenure. Through the years, there was continual evolution and change. While the years under Dan have a sense of being the best in some people's memories, there were some rifts and conflicts. We became building challenged. The old schoolhouse, often remodeled, was less and less adequate and began looking older and shabbier. We became embarrassed to invite guests. In 1999, just 5 years before I wrote this, we voted to move, and the planning, purchasing, and renovation of this space consumed us over those 5 years. Throughout my almost 25 years, now 40 years in this congregation, I have felt an intense sense of community. When I am away for a while and come back to a Sunday service, I feel held close in a metaphoric hug. I turn to the members of this community in time of hurt and for celebration. When my daughter Julie, barely 7, had an emergency appendectomy, I called my friends at church first. Dan visited Julie in the hospital. Julie held her senior flute recital at Stony Point. I celebrated my children's graduations and college acceptances as milestones in this community. When my father was dying of cancer, I went to Dan for support and to figure out how to have a service for an atheist with a Catholic wife. The evening book group is a date on my calendar that is sacred. Everything else is put aside for my monthly visit with my dear friends. Oh yes, the book discussions are great too. Now we are poised to go forward into the future, to create new programs and new traditions. What will we be? Each of you will decide that. We will be whatever you care enough to work for and whatever you dream enough to envision. You don't have to wait for them to make it happen. Find your voice and speak up. I have had 40 years of life-affirming experiences in this congregation, and I still feel like we're just beginning. As we stand ready to hire a new minister, I say, dream your dream and make it happen. I hope I've conveyed the amount of change I've seen here in the last 40 years. For the future, let's be courageous together and continue to embrace the change and opportunity that await us.
Thank you, Linda. He was a powerful preacher about a few select topics. A beautiful expression. You know, I would be happy to be remembered that way. I actually think I have only one, which is just, we should love each other. Linda's is just one story. The miracle of community is that it is all of these different stories woven together. I look frequently when people join the congregation at our membership book, which was first in use in 1977, even though the congregation existed since the mid-50s. My guess is that this is because it replaced the book that someone else had lost, maybe, that Linda couldn't sign. In any event, I flipped through it and I realized that to be a community of 75 and then 200 and then 350 and then whatever we are now people actually takes like about 1,500 people to pass through over all of the years. All those different folks who've come and gone and lent their hand in just one way or another so that we might have a Sunday morning where we're singing songs to the Spirit of life. It's kind of humbling, and it's particularly humbling when you realize that even ministers might be completely forgotten as the passage of time rolls on. How do I know this? I was reading the UUCSR congregational record online, which is where our congregation tells these incoming interim ministers all about us. And there, in a list of the ministers of the congregation, back in the distant past of the 60s, was a name, Jefferson P. Self. And it listed him, I presumed, as the called minister of this congregation from 1965 to 1967. Another fellow, Hugh Weston, was named as an interim in the 60s as well. I had never seen these names before. I certainly had never seen anyone other than Dan O'Neill listed as the first called minister. That's how the website story puts it. And when I would ask, in particular, John Durr, the founder of the congregation that was still alive for so many years when I first got here, about anybody before Dan O'Neill, he would just say something like, we were served by several part-time ministers. And that was it. Never learned a name. I asked Calvin, who's here with us, who probably has one of the best and certainly longest memories of our gathered body, and who came here in the late 60s and said, you know, people mentioned the name Jeff Self, but that was nothing. No one really, he didn't remember anything about this person. Well, I just was blown away. Here's perhaps a called minister, not even a picture, not even a knowledge of a name. What could we possibly learn about this person? Well, by golly, he has an Amazon author page. I'm just going to briefly share his story with you, and that's my offering to you this morning. This person was the minister of this congregation, born in 1930 till 1999. I'm quoting now, a man of diverse interests. He had careers both as a Unitarian minister and an academic librarian, was an international tennis umpire, and was involved in amateur theater writing and publishing. He was born in Adelaide, Australia, first-class honors in French language and literature. He became a librarian, but along the way, internationally recognized as a tennis umpire such that he eventually umpired all 4 Grand Slam events: Wimbledon, the French Championships, the Australian Championships, the Open, they're now called, and the US Open as well. And he was umpiring in the US in 1954, which is what made him decide to move to the United States. In 59, he moved with his first wife and young son to Canada, worked as a librarian in a university there. He got a student visa and came and attended the Star King School for the Ministry. And his Googled Amazon page says, Mr. Self served as a full-time minister at Unitarian churches in Santa Rosa, California, and Bucks County, Pennsylvania. He became a U.S. citizen in 1972. And his career goes on from there. He wrote a number of books. He was a lifelong advocate for free speech, an opponent of censorship. It doesn't seem like he stayed in the ministry all that long. He wrote, quote, a well-received musical play based on 2 short stories by O. Henry. Again, this person was the minister of our congregation. Look, you can look him up on Amazon, where you'll find his fascinating book, Waiting, Dating, and Mating, a guide to romance relationships in the middle years, not to mention his fascinating, I'm sure, Alternative Lifestyles, a guide to research collections on intentional communities, nudism, and sexual freedom. Well, I, at this point, was thirsty for ever greater knowledge, and my poking on the internet yielded, indeed, an article written by Reverend Self. It's called The Ashram on Grayton Road. I will link you to it. He wrote it for some journal that studied intentional communities about a thing called Morning Star Ranch, which was an infamous hippie commune, in his words, on Grayton Road near the town of Occidental. Does anybody remember Morning Star Ranch? I'm seeing, yeah, you Forestville people will probably remember it. Yeah, Susan and Andy, actually you guys were probably members now that I'm thinking about it, but I'll just ask you to read his article. He had quit the congregation, he tells the story, but had just the year before founded the local chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union, and with that, guys, he and some other people that were trying to support these alternative lifestyles became the Friends of Morning Star Ranch and offered like free legal advice, and they tried to clean the thing up when it was going to be condemned, because basically it was like 160 people living without rules or jobs on 31 acres in the middle of the forest out in Sonoma County. It had belonged to this guy named Lou Gottlieb, who was in a folk group, the Limelighters, and obviously had dropped acid and decided to try a new way of living up there in the hills in Sonoma County. Their ranch had made the front cover of Time magazine. This was how everybody learned about the Back to the Land movement. And our man, Reverend Jeff Self, was in the thick of the whole thing, which of course ultimately collapsed, as you might not be surprised. I have to quote him at the end of his article when he's talking about how the commune finally fell apart. Apparently Lou Gottlieb had decided that they were going to deed the land to God, so that the county would not be able to claim it, and it would be forever free for all these hippies to run on it. So his lawyer, who was a member of the Friends along with our guy Jeff, drew up a deed, Lou signed it, and Morning Star belonged to God. And I quote now to conclude the words of Jefferson Self, but only for 3.5 years. In November 1972, the state Supreme Court refused to reconsider the ruling of the lower court that, quote, the deity does not qualify as a grantee. The citation by the court of 2 sections of the Civil Code implied that the disqualification resulted from God's non-status as a person. But a more widely held belief was that God was incapable of supplying the county with taxes, and thus ended Morning Star. Now, I have to say, the whole thing kind of blew me away. What were those 1960s Unitarian Universalists at the Fellowship here in Sonoma County really like? Partly because John Durr was the image I always had in my head. I imagined they were thoughtful philosopher types, nose to the grindstone for justice. But they called an international tennis umpire and supporter of crazy free-love hippie communes to their pulpit. What a wonder. And until last week, completely forgotten by the congregation. It's sort of the mystery of living. Our lives are utterly valuable and important. Our personal stories are the fabric from which we build our lives. And yet, over the over the generations, over the years, as we all work together and try to become community, it just all sort of gets blended together so that it belongs to everyone, so that the story includes everyone. All those ancestors, all those people who labored in every different way through the years, and all of the people yet to come. But a better way of thinking of it, of, who belongs here? Who does this belong to? It's not just everybody who was ever and ever will be a part of it, but it actually belongs to the spirit of the congregation. A great thinker about church life, Dan Hotchkiss, says that you will succeed and thrive as a community if you say that your congregation belongs to its mission. Celebrate life, empower people, care for one another, help to build a better world. That's what owns and gives shape to the story of the place, right? Because really, the stories are only going to be so exciting. Really, our story is some people got together and tried to live the most noble, loving lives they could imagine. They've had their ups and downs, but they've never given up. Check. And why that matters is because there's that heartbeat in the middle of it all. Celebrating life, empowering people, caring for one another, and helping to build a better world. And that connects us to that large story that is the story of the spirit of life and love unfolding in existence. And that's a good place to be. So here's to Jefferson's self. Thanks for keeping an eye on things until we got here. And to everybody else who helped make this community the wonderful thing that it is. Let's sing out of a spirit of gratitude as we conclude for all that is our life.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift, which we are called to use, to build the common good, and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life. For sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift, which we are called to use, to build the common good, and make our own days glad.
This sacred space holds many stories. Today, we reflected upon a few of those. Each of you will compose the stories of the next years. May your brave and loving hearts guide you in wisdom and compassion as we chart our future together.
And friends, we're going to conclude with a beautiful postlude from Roger, and then a 5-minute, no more than 5-minute break, and we'll come back for our town hall meeting. So enjoy the music, get a cup of tea, stretch, and as soon as the song ends, I'm setting a timer for 5 minutes, and we'll be back for the town hall. Thank you for being here. Go in peace. Don't leave.